or imprinted is a good word here. I've been talking a lot about how we build up the force and we add things to our spiritual self. We do this through finding new knowledge and making sure that it's exactly right. Get things exactly right before we allow it to become part of ourself. Because when we do that, when we bring some new knowledge into our life, research it well. Look at it like you're doing the term paper of your life before you add things to yourself. That's why most of the time we read a book, we just kind of dash across it and go, okay. And we kind of put it in temporary memory. We don't make it part of ourselves because subconsciously we don't have enough information on those ideas yet sometimes to really add it to ourselves, to make an imprint, an impression on our spiritual self. But there'll be a certain point where we've got enough facts about something where it starts to move us and it becomes part of us, and then it makes the material subconscious mind then offers it, so to speak, to the spiritual subconscious mind, your spiritual self over there. It receives the information, and if it's correct, if it's become part of you, it now accepts it. And now that makes a permanent imprint on your spiritual self. And your spiritual self, being the place where all of your accumulated wisdom from lifetimes reside, now moves forward. You've added something to the spiritual energy that not only created your material life, but the one before you, the one before that when there was a different personality, 5 lifetimes back when it was Larry or Bob or Nancy or whatever, and it will also be there for the next material life that some new personality will be using, which is you under a new personality. Think about that for a while. In other words, what you think and so forth becomes a permanent record, not for yourself and for those that are going to go beyond you, and it adds things to the universe itself. Your thoughts don't stop at your ears. They go out into the universe. And depending on if they're thoughts from the material conscious, they're short range on the planet. If they are spiritual thoughts coming from your spiritual self, they almost know no bounds at all, and they race literally through the universe on their own. So we do engrave ideas into our spiritual self. We want to be cautious of that. The power of thought first forms when it's first forming, when we come into the life and so forth, and when we're children. The power of our thoughts first form in ideas of good and evil, or good and bad. And then a will is imprinted and built up inside of our spirit about this is a good thing, that's a bad thing, and so forth. That's where it starts, when we start adding things to our psyche and to our spiritual self when we're young. This creates a will, and there's kind of an agreement then, a type of thinking between the spiritual self and the material self, and it starts deciding, well, this is a good thing, and that's a bad thing, and this is evil, and that's whatever, Seen in logical order, first, the activity of thoughts must be installed before a will can be built up and imprinted for a deed to be accomplished. That means first you have a lot of little thoughts, and as you're accumulating information about something and forming all of your little thoughts, as you keep thinking about a subject, it builds up, it concentrates, and then it begins to be a force within you. It's just like my simple analogy earlier of the woman going shopping. All week long she's thinking about buying those shoes, and by Friday she is into it, and Saturday she is off to the mall. She put a lot of energy into that. Well, the same type of process works when you start putting information in yourself. You build up a will about something. You develop an overall approach to life, an attitude that you use to go through life. And that's done with all these little thoughts that we feed ourselves. Once there is imprinted in the spiritual will, a deed is possible. A newborn baby can't make a decision on buying a new car, has absolutely no information about that. But as he grows up and learns about different things and knowledges, eventually someday he will have enough knowledges which will allow him to make a good decision on buying a car, we hope. Okay? Well, without the knowledge, without all the little thoughts, the will would have never, grown up. If a person has to go buy a car and knows nothing about it, then they have to make the decision based on other factors. If they first study and learn all about cars and so forth, then they make a much more logical decision and a better buying decision when they go to get it, right? So, very simply, get educated before you start feeding things to yourself. Be careful what you feed your spirit. Most importantly, in this new age, be careful with some of the information that's flying around. People are making all sorts of claims these days about this, that, and the other, and quite a bit of it I don't believe at all. There are very few people in the New Age community, I think, that are really on target that are saying it correctly. Now, I know most of them mean well, and a lot of them are my friends, but that doesn't mean that I agree with them. I think too often people get overexcited to say, to be, to express or whatever, without clearly thinking through what they're really doing to themselves and the people around them. Thoughts, remember, also put will in motion. When you've made a lot of small thoughts and created this strong will, this attitude about something, then from that point on it's easily triggered. It is not true that the will puts thoughts into action, it's the other way around. Once you have a will built up within yourself, this collection of knowledge about something, so then you form an attitude about something, that's what a will is. At that point, all it takes to trigger it, to bring it to the forward, is a thought that deals with that information, and wham, all of your feelings and thoughts run to the forefront, your opinions about how you're going to react to something, right? We do that all the time. You know, advertising does that to us. We just finished up an election for a new president, and most all of us noticed, I think, in this ugly political year, how the parties and the advertising companies were trying so hard to control our votes through the use of negative advertising, controls with fear and so forth. They would tell us any sort of crap on there, make up any sort of thing, thinking that most people are going to be motivated to vote because of that. Well, they're triggering the things that are in us. They realize that we are a society that's very sensitive to prejudice, to anger, to value judgments. All they have to do is tell you something nasty about a person, whether it's true or not, and it triggers something in you, some feeling of righteousness that, I'm not voting for that guy if he did that. Well, they rely upon that. Well, don't be fooled so easily. They may have lied to you. And they may have lied to you on purpose, knowing full well how easily you can be triggered with a simple thought, and your entire will then race to the forefront and do a predictable thing. Don't be so predictable. Learn to stay right in balance with yourself so you're not so easily controlled by outside influences. The power which the thoughts use as a stimulus does not originate from man. Now here's another big idea for you to chew on. When you call upon your spiritual self to actually do something, it's not entirely just from yourself. The amazing part about the spirit is that it is connected actually to creation. What happens is when you have an idea about something and you allow your spiritual self to come forward to actually respond to something new in life or whatever, deed or action you're about to do, if you allow yourself to bring forward your reaction to this new deed from your spirit, what also happens is the power from that spirit, but it flows into your spirit from the immeasurable expanse of all of the universe. In other words, there is a consciousness throughout the universe of higher life forms and lesser life forms. Higher life forms project much more knowledge, of course, than the lower life forms, but out in the universe, within creation itself, there is a consciousness. And your spiritual self draws off of that. It is connected to it all the time because it is a part piece of it. Our spirit selves are part of creation. They came from it. You were always connected to it. That's my point. The idea is then when you have a problem in life and you need to make a decision, you can use that. And you should know all the time that the force of the universe is available out there to you at any given time. An example would be Uri Geller, who quite often gives demonstrations of spoon bending and so forth before large crowds. Well, Uri Geller himself, at least in his early days, couldn't bend the spoon in the dressing room on his own. What he learned to do is he learned to bend the spoon using the consciousness